ever seen. And that's not just because I don't like her. Some people just can't accept the fact that their time is past. And so they're using all these young girls. Nicki, let me just hear her name. Political. Nicki's using all these young girls to be able to leverage their name because she felt.
Nobody saw this coming. Not after years of drama. Not after all the public shots. Not after everything that went down between Jason Lee and Nicki Minaj. But suddenly, the energy shifted. And now, everything is pointing in one direction. Jay-Z. Because according to the transcript, what started as a messy feud between Jason and Nicki turned into something way bigger. Something that has fans asking whether two former enemies are now aligning against one of the most powerful figures in the industry. And it didn't happen quietly. Jason went public. He started talking about industry gatekeepers. He claimed powerful people were trying to silence him. He even said he was getting calls warning him to stop speaking, and directly named Jay-Z in that conversation. That alone set the internet on fire. Because this wasn't just gossip anymore. This was someone positioning himself as a target of power. At the same time, Nicki has been making her own claims, suggesting she's been blocked, sidelined, even professionally sabotaged by powerful figures behind the scenes. Now here's where it gets wild. Fans are starting to connect the dots, because when two voices, who used to be at war, suddenly start pointing in the same direction, people pay attention. And the biggest question right now is this just coincidence? Or is something bigger unfolding behind the scenes? Because if even part of what's being hinted at is real, this isn't just industry drama. This could shake the entire narrative of power in hip-hop. And trust me, this is just the beginning. To understand why this moment feels explosive, you have to rewind. And because the idea of Jason Lee and Nicki Minaj even appearing aligned would have sounded impossible just a year ago. Their fallout was loud, public, personal. In September 2023, Jason made a shocking claim about Nicki and her husband, alleging he felt he was being set up in a dangerous way, a statement that instantly went viral because of how serious it sounded. He even said he had proof and planned to take it to the district attorney. That wasn't subtle tension. That was nuclear, and it cemented the perception that Jason and Nicki were permanent enemies. But in entertainment, alliances shift fast. The transcript makes clear that things started to change when Jason began talking more aggressively about industry gatekeepers, particularly when it came to Jay-Z. On his podcast, Jason claimed that Jay-Z had people calling him and warning him to stop speaking publicly. He said, "Jay-Z, I know you're watching because you got people calling me. Call me yourself." That moment reframed him. Instead of just being a gossip commentator, he positioned himself as someone challenging power. And that's where Nicki enters the picture again. Because for years, Nicki has openly expressed frustration about what she describes as industry politics blocking her career. She has accused major figures, including Jay-Z, of misleading her about business matters tied to title and of allegedly trying to quiet her with financial offers. To be clear, these are claims Nicki has made publicly. They have not been legally proven in court, and Jay-Z has not been found guilty of wrongdoing in relation to those allegations. But the repetition of these claims built a narrative. Now, Nicki has also suggested that powerful industry figures have tried to limit her voice and elevate other artists at her expense. Again, allegation, not proven fact. Yet when Jason began echoing themes about gatekeeping and behind-the-scenes control, fans noticed the overlap. Now add another layer. The Super Bowl controversy. When Jay-Z selected Kendrick Lamar for the 2025 Super Bowl performance instead of Lil Wayne, the decision sparked debate. Nicki openly vented frustration about that decision. Jason, interestingly, focused less on attacking Nicki, which had been his usual approach, and more on criticizing what he described as industry gatekeeping. That tonal shift did not go unnoticed. Fans started whispering, "Is Jason softening toward Nicki? Is there a strategic pivot happening?" The transcript also references that Jason had previously criticized Nicki harshly, even engaging with viral conversations like deportation petitions and labeling her controversial. So the change in tone felt deliberate. But it gets deeper. Nicki has recently reshared interviews involving individuals connected to Roc Nation leadership, including claims made by Desiree Perez's daughter during a legal dispute. Those claims suggested that Roc Nation worked to undermine Nicki. Important clarification: those statements are allegations made in interviews. They have not been proven in court, and no legal finding has confirmed that Roc Nation engaged in sabotage. Still, when public figures amplify such interviews, narratives grow. And Jason has increasingly positioned himself as someone willing to question Roc Nation and Jay-Z publicly. That convergence, even if unofficial, created the perception of alignment. Now here's where things get especially sensitive. The transcript mentions rumors that Jason has spoken behind the scenes about Jay-Z and Beyoncé allegedly making professional moves to damage Nicki's career. Let's be very clear. Those are rumors and speculation. There is no verified evidence or legal finding confirming that Jay-Z or Beyoncé sabotaged Nicki's career. But the fact that such rumors are circulating, combined with Jason's public gatekeeping narrative, fuels outrage. And then there's the historical context. The transcript references artists like Blue Cantrell and others who faced career downturns and later became subjects of speculation about industry politics. Again, speculation, not proven fact. But in hip-hop culture, odd patterns, even alleged ones, create storylines. And when Nicki has gone as far as making extreme, unverified claims about powerful figures maintaining control behind the scenes, including commentary about age gaps in past relationships, it escalates controversy dramatically. None of those claims have been validated by court rulings, but they generate emotion, and emotion drives engagement. So now we have this moment. Jason Lee, once Nicki's loudest critic, increasingly criticizing Jay-Z and Roc Nation's influence. Nicki, long vocal about feeling blocked or sabotaged. Fans, watching closely. Is this a real alliance forming, or simply overlapping frustrations? Jason has not fully switched sides. Even in early 2026, he continued calling out Nicki's controversial moments. So this isn't a full truce. It's something more nuanced. Strategic proximity. And that's what makes this volatile. Because if Nicki were to sit down with Jason on Hollywood Unlocked and publicly name names, the internet would explode. Right now, nothing has been legally proven. No court ruling confirms sabotage. No documented evidence establishes wrongdoing by Jay-Z in the claims referenced. But perception? Perception is shifting. And in the entertainment industry, perception can be just as powerful as proof. Which brings us to the next escalation. Because if this alignment solidifies, the fallout could be massive. And the industry is watching very closely. This is where everything shifts. Because it's one thing for Jason Lee to gossip. It's another thing for him to position himself as someone challenging power. And according to the transcript, and that's exactly what happened when he went public claiming that Jay-Z had people calling him, telling him to stop talking. He didn't whisper it. He said it directly. Stop having people call me. You can call me yourself. That statement alone reframed him. Not as a blogger chasing headlines, but as someone suggesting he felt pressure from a powerful machine. Now let's be clear. There is no verified proof publicly confirming that Jay-Z ordered anyone to contact Jason or silence him. These statements are Jason's claims, not court-validated findings. But perception doesn't wait for validation, and perception exploded. Because at the same time, Nicki Minaj had been openly speaking about feeling professionally blocked. She has accused major industry figures, including Jay-Z, of misleading her regarding business matters tied to Tidal and attempting to quiet her with financial offers. Again, these are her claims. They have not been legally proven in court. But when two public voices begin echoing themes about gatekeeping, control, and being silenced, the internet connects dots instantly. And that's where the conflict ignited. Because this wasn't just old beef anymore. This became narrative warfare. For years, Nicki and Jason were publicly at odds. He criticized her politics. He leaned into viral controversies around her. He framed her as chaotic and problematic. Then suddenly, His tone softened. He began framing her not as unstable, but as someone possibly boxed in by larger industry forces. That pivot was subtle, but powerful, and fans noticed immediately. Was this redemption? Was this strategy? Or was this the beginning of an unofficial alliance built on shared frustration? Here's the first major twist. Jason didn't actually declare loyalty to Nicki. He didn't apologize. He didn't retract his past criticisms. Instead, he shifted focus. He aimed his microphone at the structure. He began talking about gatekeepers controlling access behind the scenes. That shift allowed him to critique power without fully aligning himself with Nicki. It was a strategic middle ground. And here's why that matters. Because if he had fully switched sides, it would look opportunistic. If he stayed fully against her, it would look inconsistent with his new anti-gatekeeping narrative. So instead, he hovered. Close enough to overlap with her claims, far enough to maintain independence. And that tension is what makes this volatile. And now add another accelerant, the Super Bowl controversy. When Jay-Z selected Kendrick Lamar over Lil Wayne for the 2025 Super Bowl, debate exploded. Nicki vented publicly. Jason didn't attack her as aggressively as he might have before. Instead, he framed it as an example of industry power choosing favorites. Fans saw that as alignment, and alignment creates anticipation. Because the thought of Nicki sitting down on Hollywood Unlocked and speaking freely about her alleged experiences with industry power players, that's nuclear content. Now here's the second twist. The rumors about a formal truce are just that. Rumors. The transcript makes clear Jason has continued to call out Nicki on certain issues even in early 2026. So this isn't friendship, it's convergence. Two people who may not like each other, but share a common critique of power. And in politics and hip-hop, the enemy of my enemy becomes strategic territory. Now let's talk stakes. If Jason fully platforms Nicki to detail her allegations against Jay-Z or Roc Nation, that's not just gossip. That's confrontation with one of the most powerful entities in music. And confronting power comes with risk. Legal risk, reputational risk, access risk. Jay-Z has not been found guilty of wrongdoing in relation to these allegations. Roc Nation has not been legally proven to sabotage artists. But narratives matter. And narratives shape public perception of power. Here's where it escalates emotionally. Nicki has suggested that powerful industry figures have tried to elevate other artists at her expense. She's implied professional sabotage. She's referenced shadow banning and influence. Again, allegations, not proven fact. But when those claims are amplified by a media personality who claims he too feels targeted by the same power structure, it creates a shared storyline. Gatekeeper versus outsider, machine versus voice. And fans eat that up. But here's the strategic brilliance. Jason positions himself as brave for speaking up. Nicki positions herself as vindicated for having spoken up earlier. Neither has to prove a crime. They just have to question the system loudly enough to create doubt. That's the first twist. This may not be about proving what Jay-Z did. It may be about challenging how much control people believe he has. And that's a different battlefield. Because challenging influence is safer than alleging crime. And influence is subjective. Now let's address the elephant in the room. There have been extreme, unverified claims circulating online, including commentary about past relationships and industry manipulation. Those claims have not been validated by legal findings. They remain speculation. But the mere existence of those conversations fuels outrage. And outrage fuels engagement. The conflict is no longer personal. It's ideological. Power versus platform. Institution versus individual voice. Jason Lee, a blogger once dismissed by mainstream media, positioning himself as someone willing to question the Roc Nation machine. Nicki Minaj, a superstar claiming she's been boxed out by that same machine. That's a compelling narrative. But here's the cliffhanger twist. Neither side has crossed the legal line into documented accusation. They imply, they suggest, they criticize, but they stop short of releasing concrete evidence. Why? It's because escalation without proof becomes defamation. And defamation lawsuits are expensive. So the war stays in the realm of narrative, not courtroom. At least for now. The real question isn't whether Jay-Z did something specific, because nothing has been proven in court. The real question is whether this perceived alignment between Jason and Nicki evolves into something formal. An interview, a joint appearance, a public naming of names. If that happens, the internet will detonate. If it doesn't, this remains a slow burn challenge to industry hierarchy. Right now, the conflict is alive but controlled, charged but careful, public but strategic. And if one wrong word is spoken, it could shift from viral drama to legal confrontation overnight. That's the tension, and it's only building. Just when people thought this was going to stay in the subtweet phase, it escalated. Not with a lawsuit, not with a diss track, not with a press conference, with tone. Because once Jason Lee publicly framed himself as someone being pressured by powerful forces, and Nicki Minaj continued reinforcing her long-standing complaints about industry gatekeeping, the energy changed. It wasn't gossip anymore. It became narrative alignment. And the internet picked up on it instantly. Clips from Jason's podcast started circulating with captions like, "Why is he suddenly defending Nicki? Is this the beginning of a Roc Nation takedown? Why are they both pointing at the same person?" The person at the center of that speculation? Jay-Z. Now let's pause and clarify something very clearly. There is no verified legal ruling confirming that Jay-Z sabotaged Nicki Minaj's career. There is no court decision proving that Roc Nation orchestrated professional blocks. There is no documented evidence publicly released that confirms coordinated silencing efforts. What exists are public claims, interviews, and commentary. But in entertainment, claims can move markets. And here's where escalation turned strategic. Jason didn't double down recklessly. He didn't accuse Jay-Z of a crime. He kept his framing focused on power dynamics and gatekeeping. That language matters, because gatekeeping isn't illegal. It's subjective, it's influence, it's favoritism, it's access control. And once you start questioning who controls access in hip-hop, you're no longer talking about one incident. You're talking about hierarchy. That's the shift. And then came the subtle move that shocked fans. Nicki began resharing content connected to past legal disputes involving Roc Nation affiliates, including interviews where individuals alleged internal manipulation. Again, those statements are allegations made in interviews, not court-validated findings. But the amplification was intentional, and amplification signals intent. Now the timeline becomes important. Jason publicly challenges the idea of gatekeepers. Nicki amplifies narratives of being blocked. Fans begin speculating about a Hollywood unlocked sit-down. That possibility alone started trending. Because imagine the optics. Nicki Minaj sitting across from Jason Lee, both openly discussing power, both hinting at being targeted. That's not just drama, that's positioning. But here's the shocking reveal. The real escalation may not be about Jay-Z at all. It may be about leverage. Think about it. Nicki has one of the most loyal fan bases in music. Jason has a media platform built on viral moments. If they align publicly, even loosely, they create pressure. Not legal pressure, public pressure. And public pressure forces silence or response. So far, there has been no explosive public response from Jay-Z. No lengthy rebuttal, no press tour, no statement campaign, just silence. And silence in the face of implication is interpreted two ways, either confidence or calculation. Because sometimes responding elevates a narrative, sometimes ignoring it starves it. But here's where the story twists again. Jason didn't fully commit to defending Nicki. He still critiques her when controversy flares. He still calls out what he sees as reckless behavior. So this isn't loyalty. It's strategic overlap, and that makes it more dangerous. Because loyalty can be dismissed as bias. Strategic overlap looks organic. Now zoom out. The Super Bowl selection controversy, when Jay-Z backed Kendrick Lamar over Lil Wayne, became another symbolic flashpoint. Nicki expressed frustration. Jason framed it as evidence of gatekeeping. Neither accused a crime, but both implied influence. Influence is harder to disprove. And that's the brilliance of the escalation. You don't allege illegal sabotage. You question systemic favoritism. You don't claim conspiracy. You highlight patterns. And patterns create doubt. Now here's the reveal nobody expected. Industry insiders, and quietly, started saying the real risk isn't defamation, it's access. Because challenging powerful executives publicly can close doors. Radio relationships, festival bookings, collaborations. Those channels are rarely discussed openly, but they exist. And if artists or media personalities are perceived as combative toward power structures, consequences can unfold subtly. Again, no verified proof that such consequences have been imposed here. But the perception of risk is enough to make people cautious. So why is Jason doing it? Why is Nicki continuing to poke at the system? Because outrage drives relevance, because controversy drives clicks, because challenging power generates loyalty. And here's the psychological twist. When audiences believe someone is being silenced, they amplify them louder. That's human instinct. Nicki's fans already believe she's been mistreated. Jason's audience thrives on explosive industry revelations. Combine those ecosystems, you get volatility. But here's the cliffhanger that keeps this from exploding fully. No concrete evidence has been released. No receipts, no documents, no contracts, just narratives. And narratives without proof hover in a gray zone. Escalate too far and it becomes legal exposure. Stay in the gray and it becomes sustainable controversy. Right now, they're walking that line. Carefully, strategically. But here's the final shock in this phase. The longer Jay-Z remains silent, the more people speculate. And speculation is oxygen. If he responds, it becomes a headline. If he doesn't, it becomes mystery. Either way, attention remains, and attention is currency. So the question isn't, what did Jay-Z do? Because nothing illegal has been proven. The question is, will this perceived alignment between Jason and Nicki solidify into something formal? An interview? A joint appearance? A coordinated narrative shift? If that happens, we're not talking about hints anymore. We're talking about a direct cultural confrontation, and the industry knows it. For now, it's tension, calculated, contained. But if one side drops something concrete, or one interview crosses the line, this stops being speculative drama and becomes a defining power moment in hip-hop. And that possibility is what has fans furious and watching every move. The moment this narrative started gaining traction, the reaction wasn't quiet. It was divided. And when hip-hop splits into camps, the volume turns up fast. On one side, fans of Nicki Minaj felt vindicated. For years, she has publicly voiced frustration about feeling blocked, sidelined, or treated unfairly by industry power structures. Now, with Jason Lee openly talking about gatekeepers and claiming he felt pressure from powerful figures, many of her supporters saw overlap. Not proof, not confirmation, but validation of a pattern they already believed existed. Social media lit up with posts like, "She's been telling us this for years." Now people are finally speaking up. Power doesn't like being questioned. Again, these are fan reactions, not legal findings. But fan perception drives momentum. Meanwhile, critics pushed back hard. They argued that vague claims about gatekeeping without evidence only fuel conspiracy thinking. They pointed out that no court has ruled that Jay-Z sabotaged Nicki's career. No legal documentation has confirmed coordinated blocking. To them, this felt like narrative framing without receipts. And that's where the industry layer becomes fascinating. Inside music circles, there's an unspoken understanding about influence. Executives influence opportunities. Partnerships shape access. Relationships determine collaborations. None of that is illegal by default. It's business. So when Jason frames his experience as being pressured, and Nicki frames hers as being blocked, insiders don't immediately assume criminal behavior. They assume politics. And politics in entertainment isn't new. But here's what caught attention: the timing. The Super Bowl selection debate involving Kendrick Lamar and Lil Wayne had already sparked heated discussion about who gets elevated and why. When that controversy overlapped with Jason's gatekeeper commentary and Nicki's ongoing grievances, it created the perception of a larger pattern. Even though no evidence has proven wrongdoing, the narrative alignment was powerful. Industry veterans responded cautiously. No major artist publicly attacked Jay-Z. No high-profile executive rushed to defend him in a dramatic press conference. Instead, silence. And silence in moments like this can mean many things: confidence, strategic restraint, or simply refusal to amplify speculation. Roc Nation itself has not issued sweeping public rebuttals addressing these layered narratives in a way that escalated the situation. That lack of reaction created two interpretations online. Supporters of Jay-Z saw it as composure, a refusal to dignify speculation. Critics saw it as calculated distance, letting narratives burn out on their own. Then there's the media ecosystem. Blogs and reaction channels amplified every clip of Jason discussing gatekeepers. Every time Nicki reposted commentary related to industry politics, it was dissected. But notice something critical. Major mainstream outlets reported on the controversy carefully. They used words like alleged, claims, speculation. Because without documented evidence, no serious outlet is going to frame it as fact. That caution is important. It signals that despite social media intensity, the story remains narrative-driven, not legally substantiated. Now here's where things got especially heated. Fan bases clashed. Nicki's supporters argued that challenging power is courageous, and Jay-Z's supporters argued that decades of business success shouldn't be reduced to internet theories. Jason's audience framed him as fearless. Others framed him as provocative for clicks. And in the middle of that chaos, one thing became clear. This wasn't about a single accusation. It was about control of narrative. Who gets to define power? Who gets to question it? Who gets to amplify dissatisfaction? And that's why industry reaction remained restrained. Because once this moves beyond commentary into formal accusation territory, it becomes a legal matter. So far, it hasn't crossed that line. No lawsuit has been filed over these claims. No official defamation complaint has been announced. No court ruling has confirmed sabotage. That's critical, because it keeps this in the realm of cultural debate rather than legal battle. But here's the tension building beneath the surface. Artists watch moments like this closely, because speaking openly about industry power structures can either elevate you as bold or isolate you as risky. Media personalities face the same calculus. The shocking part of the public reaction isn't outrage alone. It's anticipation. People aren't just reacting to what was said. They're waiting to see what happens next. Will there be an interview? Will Nicki and Jason formally sit down together? Will Jay-Z respond directly? Or will this fade as another cycle of heated speculation? Right now, the industry reaction is quiet but observant. No mass exodus, no dramatic fallout, no confirmed retaliation. But attention? Attention is locked in. Because whenever power, perception, and influence intersect publicly, the ripple effects travel far. And the longer this tension sits unresolved, the more people start to wonder whether silence is strategy or simply patience. Either way, everyone's watching, very carefully. Here's the twist nobody expected. This might not be about proving anything at all. It might be about positioning. Because if you zoom out and remove the emotion, remove the fan wars, remove the viral clips, what you're left with is a strategic chessboard. On one side, Nicki Minaj, a global superstar with one of the most loyal fan bases in music, who has repeatedly voiced frustration about feeling boxed in by industry politics. On another, Jason Lee, a media personality who thrives on challenging narratives and has now publicly framed himself as someone willing to question powerful gatekeepers. And at the center of speculation, Jay-Z, one of the most influential executives and artists in hip-hop history. Now let's reset something clearly. There has been no court ruling confirming sabotage, no verified documentation proving coordinated blocking, no legal finding establishing wrongdoing in the claims being circulated. What exists is perception. And perception in 2026 is currency. Here's the final twist. The silence may be intentional on every side. Jason doesn't release concrete receipts. Nicki doesn't file lawsuits tied to the allegations she's voiced. Jay-Z doesn't publicly escalate. Why? Because escalation changes the battlefield. If this moves into a courtroom, narratives become evidence-driven, and evidence requires proof. Right now, the battlefield is public opinion, and public opinion thrives on ambiguity. Jason can challenge power structures without naming crimes. Nicki can imply systemic favoritism without presenting contracts. Jay-Z can remain silent and let legacy speak for itself. It's a standoff. But here's the part that shifts everything. The longer this perceived alignment between Jason and Nicki continues, even loosely, the more it pressures the industry ecosystem. Not legally, culturally. Because when two high-visibility figures repeatedly question hierarchy, it plants doubt. And doubt spreads fast in entertainment circles. The shocking realization? This might not be about exposing Jay-Z. It might be about reshaping how much influence people believe he has. There's a difference. Alleging wrongdoing invites lawsuits. Questioning influence invites debate. And debate fuels relevance. Now imagine the scenario everyone is whispering about. A formal sit-down interview. Nicki across from Jason. No interruptions, no filters. Just a full breakdown of what she believes happened behind the scenes. Would that prove anything legally? No. But would it reshape cultural perception? Absolutely. And perception drives opportunities. Perception drives alliances. Perception drives loyalty. Here's the cliffhanger that keeps this explosive. If Jason continues subtly shifting from critic to sympathetic challenger, if Nicki continues amplifying narratives about power imbalance, if Jay-Z continues staying silent, then this tension doesn't disappear. It marinates. And marinated tension eventually demands release. Through a record, through an interview, through a public statement, or through silence that becomes louder than words. But here's the unpredictable element. What if this entire moment is strategic timing? Nicki has projects in motion. Jason thrives on engagement spikes. Jay-Z operates in long-term legacy arcs. Everyone benefits from attention, as long as it doesn't cross into provable legal accusation. And that's the line nobody has crossed. Yet. So the real question isn't, what did Jay-Z allegedly do? Because nothing illegal has been proven. The real question is this the beginning of a larger cultural pushback against perceived industry hierarchy? Or is this a temporary alignment fueled by mutual frustration? Right now, the situation feels contained, calculated, charged, but controlled. But if one piece of concrete evidence ever surfaces, or if one public statement crosses from implication into direct accusation, this stops being cultural tension and becomes legal warfare. And once lawyers enter the chat, the energy shifts permanently. So here we are. No lawsuits, no confirmed sabotage, no documented receipts, just power, perception, and two voices challenging influence. And that's what makes this dangerous. Because sometimes the most explosive battles aren't fought in court. They're fought in narrative. And this narrative is far from finished. The next move could be silence. Or it could be seismic. Either way. Hip-hop is watching closely. Now I want to hear from you. And I mean really think about this. After everything unfolding between Jason Lee, Nicki Minaj, and the speculation surrounding Jay-Z, do you believe this is about truth? Or is it about narrative power? Because let's be clear, no court has confirmed sabotage. No verified documents have proven coordinated blocking. No official ruling has established wrongdoing. What we're witnessing is perception clashing with influence, and perception is powerful. So here's the question. When public figures repeatedly question gatekeepers, does that signal courage or strategy? Do you think Jason is genuinely challenging industry hierarchy? Or do you think this is a calculated engagement move? And what about Nicki? Has she been consistently speaking her truth for years? Or is this timing strategic? Drop your thoughts in the comments, but keep it smart. This isn't about spreading unverified accusations. It's about analyzing how power, influence, and perception collide in hip-hop. And here's the bigger cliffhanger. If a full sit-down interview happens, if receipts are ever presented, if Jay-Z breaks his silence, would that change everything for you? Make sure you hit like if you want more deep breakdowns that separate facts from speculation while still diving into the drama. Subscribe and turn on notifications because if this escalates through a statement, a diss track, an interview, or something nobody sees coming, we're covering it immediately. This story isn't resolved, it's simmering. And when the next move drops, you're going to want to be here.